Welcome to the Week 3 LA City Section basketball video. Connor Morissette and Alex Scar. Alex, the number of teams we haven't seen, the ratio to teams we haven't seen and have seen, it's dwindling a little bit. We've had a chance to check out a lot of these City Section teams. And basketball season, it's in full swing. It's a fun time.
Yeah, it's been a really good start to the season. A lot of these teams are going to head into a bit of a lull this week. Then they're going to get into some holiday tournaments, going to play in those, and then take off to spend some time with the family for the new year. And then once that new year starts, 2019, league play pretty much gets started right on the 4th or the 5th of January. So a lot of good basketball coming. But as we've seen so far, really good couple of showings from some of the teams we expected. A couple of teams we left off of our initial top 10 have jumped in because of how well they've played. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, and you saw a great game. Granada Hills kind of wowed you, and they beat down a pretty solid Grant team, so that was impressive. We'll get to them in a little bit. I was at that Taft-Washington prep game. I've seen a few other games since we last spoke, so we'll break it all down when we get into the top 10 and the teams who just missed out. I want to start by just highlighting some lower division teams who have gotten off to good starts. Jordan in that Imperial League, they're 5-0. They're still yet to play King Drew or Washington Prep, so they'll come back down to earth a little bit, but that's a good team in Division 3. Middle College as well. Jordan is the one team who beat them. Roy Ball, 7-0.
Classic Roy Ball.
Watch out for them. They look great in Division 3 as well. And then USC Hybrid, 8-1, repping Division 5. Eagle Rock, good team in Division 2. Jefferson in Division 4. Huntington Park in Division 3. All teams who started off really well. Hopefully, when 2019 comes, we'll be able to see some of these teams in action. And right now, we're kind of focusing on more D1 teams, but those are some guys who are doing well, and I wanted to shout them out.
Yeah, just like the NCAA, a lot of teams have basketball teams that may not have football teams. Some schools you may have not paid attention to during football season. This is a good time to start get to know teams like USC Hybrid and Roy Ball. Teams really kind of getting off to good starts. 5 divisions here in the city section. A lot of divisions, a lot of teams. A lot of teams kind of showing up a little bit. I don't think they'll ever make our top 10, but certainly teams to watch. We talked about Southeast a lot last year, how they kind of came out of nowhere. Wouldn't be surprised to see Jordan or some of these other teams give King Drew a fit. You never know. Some of these teams might come out of nowhere again.
Let's get into the top 10 first, the teams who just missed out. So we'll start with View Park. They had some positives and some negatives in that tournament at Beverly Hills. So I was at the game where they beat Linwood, and we talked about that last week, and then they lost to eventual champ Harvard-Westlake. And I'm just kind of going to sum up what I said last week about View Park. They fall out because in their losses they got beat pretty good, and I think for the most part it's a really young team, and they miss a lot of the seniors they had a year ago.
Yeah, they beat Crossroads in that tournament 68-60, but Crossroads, I mean, I think they lost to just about everybody in that tournament. They don't look like the same Crossroads that had Sharif O'Neal last year. So kind of take that win with a grain of salt. They also lost to St. Bernard, 58-49. But in that new year, as you mentioned, the Coliseum League, Dorsey, Crenshaw, and Fremont, they get them all one of those first couple of weeks in January 2019. So they're going to have plenty of chances to hop back in that top 10. Maybe View Park, as with some of these other Coliseum League teams, kind of rebuilding, a lot of young guys. There's going to be opportunities for View Park to jump back in, but as you mentioned, 2-2, just missing our top 10.
Certainly, and this week we dropped Narbonne out because they still haven't played.
No games.
They're going to play Price on December 18th, I believe. Hopefully one of us will be able to check that game out. But there are teams who are playing who are impressing us, and it's just the fact that they haven't played a game is why they slip out. We still have pretty good expectations for them, but let's be honest, we don't really know too much about this Narbonne team. Who from the football team is going to play? Joseph Escalante is their great shooter, but what else do they have? I'm excited to see how that all kind of pans out.
Yeah, exactly. They haven't played anymore, so our assumption that they're good just isn't good enough because some of these teams are actually playing. We're going to talk about Gardena in a minute. They're one of those teams from the Marine League. They're representing that league. They're kind of replacing Narbonne because they're actually playing good basketball. I think they're 9-1 right now.
Played 10 games.
Yeah, so that's a lot of basketball that they're playing. Narbonne hasn't played at all. I still think they're going to be a decent team, and if we've given them the benefit of the doubt this far, they're going to be able to jump back in. But for now, it's just no playing basketball. It's going to hurt you.
Fremont drops out as well, and I saw them lose to Crenshaw in a game where they were winning for a lot of that one, but then Crenshaw at home kind of took over in the second half. But early in that game, Fremont was up double digits. They're still without their coach, George McClin, who is suspended indefinitely. We thought it was just one game. He's out for a little bit. I don't know the specifics on exactly how long that's going to be, but it all stems back to eligibility issues. And then Roy Clark is still out, as is Kerry Page, and they're off the Max Preps roster. Again, I was at their senior night a year ago, and neither of those guys were honored. Fremont only had one senior. The expectation was they were going to come back, but apparently there's been an issue, and they've used their eligibility. The city's still kind of figuring that out, and on the court, it's clearly affecting them. we thought they were going to be the class of the Coliseum League, and to lose to a Crenshaw team who's down a little bit compared to where they were last year, that was disappointing, but at least we understand why.
Yeah, I mean, they're 2-2 right now. As you mentioned, they lost 80-65 against Crenshaw. So to have a double-digit lead in the first half and to lose by 15, that's kind of a collapse. And when you're without your coach, without some of your key seniors, those tight moments late in the game, they can kind of get away from you because people that aren't in those situations before might not know how to handle it. And for Fremont, if they get these guys back, Roy Clark, Kerry Page, they were two huge pieces last year, as you mentioned, didn't get honored on senior day, so you want them to get that recognition, get a chance to play one final game in front of their fans. And for the city section, of course, we don't know all the details. The city's going to go in and kind of look at it, but I would really hope that these kids, and for Fremont, they kind of get back to it. They get the ability to play, because this was a team, they were in the LA Times top 25.
Yeah.
They were certainly on the radar for a lot of these coaches around the city section, around the city and southern section as well. This is not a team I want to see down. I want them to kind of come back, breathe some more life back into the city section, because this is as strong we've seen the city in any sport in a long time.
6'6" big man Kobe Craig transferred into Fremont this year, and he played really well against Crenshaw. He just needs a little bit of help. They don't have too much depth without the two missing players, and Crenshaw just kind of tired him out and figured him out a little bit, and it was too bad. But Kobe Craig is certainly a name to watch. And then finally, Dorsey was 10 last week. They're out this week. We had him at 10 for a little bit. We were going back and forth. But at the end of the day, they haven't won yet.
Yep.
And every game that they've played some good teams, but every game they've played, they haven't been within 10. So the potential is there. I still really like Reese Dixon, and I think a lot of those young guys are really talented, but they're kind of figuring it all out right now, and it's going to take them a little bit, I think. We'll see what happens in league play, because I still think the talent's there.
Well, we just got done talking about View Park having a chance to jump back in our top 10. Dorsey in that same Coliseum League, they're going to have the equal opportunity. And you mentioned Reese Dixon. He had 31 points against Inglewood.
Yeah, he's great.
He's a really, really good kid, only a sophomore. They did lose by 10, but Reese was 4 of 6 from deep and 13 of 14 at the line. Those are really, really clutch numbers. He's not just driving. He's getting to the lane.
Great shooter.
Really good shooter. He's able to get to the line because he's getting to the lane, getting to the rim, doing a really good job. And Dorsey, just one upperclassman right now was on that stat sheet on the Inglewood game, was Marlon Harris, a junior. They just don't have a lot of guys that have experience at the varsity level. So Dorsey, if it's not this year, it's going to be next year or the year after, because they are so, so talented and so deep. But for now, they missed the cut.
Let's get into our top 10. Making their first appearance on the year, it's King Drew from the Imperial League. Alex, listen to some of these scores. They beat Port of Los Angeles 73-13.
Oh, wait, this one? Yeah.
Last week, and then Demali 122-20.
Yeah,
by
unbelievable.
Over 100. That Imperial League, it is very lopsided. We mentioned Jordan, how they're undefeated as well with Washington Prep and King Drew. But Washington Prep and King Drew, those are the two best teams in that league. Jordan isn't going to be able to compete with those two teams. It's too bad seeing these leagues. It's kind of like the Marine League in football a little bit with Arbonne rolls over these teams. And I thought we moved some teams around to prevent this, but I guess in basketball there's only so much you can do. But good for King Drew. They're playing against who they're playing against, and they're blowing them out.
Yeah, to score 122 points in 36 minutes of basketball is incredibly impressive. We talked about Billy Clark last week. I think I gave him my game ball. He's their senior leader. He's the good forward on that team, pretty much their best player. They only have one other senior on the roster, so he's really kind of steering the ship right there. And then we talk about him before, Fidelis Okereke, big physical presence down low. I watched him throw down a dunk against San Pedro last year, and the bench just went nuts. So as this kid gets a little bigger, he gets a little older, he's going to be a really, really difficult guy to guard down there in the post. And King Drew, 6-2. This is a team that we kind of thought last year they were slowly kind of creeping up, making their presence felt, and here they are in our top 10. I expect them to stay there.
Khalib LeCount is a good freshman for them. I saw King Drew beat Silmar, and he had a really good game. So we talk a lot about younger guys on this show. He's one to watch, certainly. And I'm really excited. This Imperial League, it's not new, but some teams have come in. Remember, Washington Prep is in this year after being in the Marine League. I think King Drew and Washington Prep games are going to be the battle for supremacy in that league, and that's going to be for years to come. Two great coaches at those programs, and this year it's going to be great. Can Washington Prep defend Okereke inside, and how will King Drew play with all the guards that Washington Prep has? That's going to be great in 2019. Alex, Granada Hills comes in at number 9. They were unranked a week ago. They're 2-4, but every loss has been close, bar that Sierra Canyon game. But no one in the city really can compete with Sierra Canyon. What did you see from Granada Hills in their 69-28 win over Grant? It was dominating.
Well, Coach Loperena, I thought, had a fantastic game plan because Grant, we know they've got one really good big man, Chase Polynice. He's 6'10".
Yeah,
he's going to be pretty much dominating the post. So the way that Granada was able to defend that, they pretty much pressed the hell out of the guards in the backcourt, and they were able to prevent them from getting the ball up the floor. They forced a ton of turnovers, and they put the onus on the Grant guards. They got to handle the ball, they got to break the press, and they weren't able to do it. You talked about Granada Hills kind of blowing them out, 69-28. Yeah. 13 points in the second half, and a lot of the time was spent by freshmen playing in that game. So Grant, not their best showing. I still think they're a pretty good team, and they got some talented guys, but boy, I was really impressed. A couple of guys, Joe Carrillo, EJ Garcia, and Jesse Banu, all three guys coming back from last year's team. That was an open division team, upset Narbonne in the first round. All these guys are back, as well as Grayson Mosley and Chris Howard. It's going to be a good team. They're going to be a difficult team, one of those pesky teams, an annoying team. Kind of remind me of Virginia that we see.
Yeah.
Don't score a ton of points, really guard-dominated, but really, really good defensively. This is going to be an annoying team in that West Valley League.
Yeah, the West Valley League is going to be great with Taft, Elko, Birmingham, and Granada all really competing. You feel bad for Cleveland a little bit.
Yeah, they're left out.
Bear the brunt. But Cleveland, we've seen, they've been competitive as well. Going to be a great league. At number 8, we have Gardena out of the Marine League. And don't look now, Alex, but they're 9-1.
Yes,
they
sir.
beat Warren a couple weeks ago. They just fell to a good Downey team. That's their one loss. But this team, out of kind of nowhere, I really wasn't expecting too much from them. They were a good D1 team a year ago, but Cameron Mahan is the leader for them. And they play Jared Lane and Hollywood on Friday. That should be a good game. Look out for Gardena. Right now we have them atop the Marine League. Of course, Narbonne hasn't played any games, but no one's talking about Gardena at all. You see so much high school basketball stuff on Twitter. No one's really talking about them. Hopefully we'll be able to get out to a game for them soon. 9-1 is 9-1. It's pretty good.
Yeah, they haven't really played a top-tier team yet, so I think some of these big tournaments, talk about the Bosco Invitational, some of the Pac Shores tournaments, a lot of chances for a team to get on our radar. Gardena hasn't been in some of these tournaments, so they've been left out. But as you mentioned, they're 9-1, and of their 9 wins, only 4 have been single-digit victories. 5 of them were blowouts. So this is a team, maybe they're playing a little bit down competition, which is why they're not getting the notoriety. But once that Marine League schedule starts, they start playing some of those tough teams. We talked about Narbonne probably going to be one of the tough teams they're going to face. We're going to kind of see what the Panthers have, but as they're 9-1, that's a darn good team. And let's talk about Cameron Mahan for a second. This kid is a beast. He's a 6'7" wing. He can dominate a small team in the paint, really just kind of give him the business on the pick and roll. He gets to the rim, got a nice little mid-range shot, defends well, blocks shots. This kid's an all-around piece here for Gardena, and when you got a big guy that can handle the ball, shoot, score, get to the rim, at will, it's going to be a really, really good team and a tough guy to guard. Watch out for Gardena.
Yeah, Gardena 3-0 since we shot our last video, and they move into the top 10 at number 8. At 7, Crenshaw. So these are the last of the teams who weren't ranked who move in. Crenshaw at 7, 6-2. I was at their 80-65 win over Fremont on Friday. They also beat King. That was on Tuesday. That was yesterday. Who really impressed me in that Crenshaw game? It was Justin Cornelius, the 6'7" wing, but fantastic shooter. He was knocking down so many threes in that Fremont game, and he was the reason why they ended up coming back. I mentioned earlier how they were down double digits. He hit a bunch of threes, and there were a couple. I was sitting next to a Crenshaw alum, and we were talking, and we'd just say, oh, heat check, no way that one's going in. And then it would drop again. So he really impressed me. Watch out, I might have a game ball for him in a little bit. He was the difference in that game. And we talked about Crenshaw. They're down a little bit this year. They still have some depth. Coach Waters, great coach. He knows what he's doing. And they move into number 7. And don't look now. We kind of counted them out a little earlier in the Coliseum League. Not so fast right now. They're the top-ranked team in that league. And you never want to count out the Crenshaw Cougars. We've learned that the hard way before, and we won't do that again.
Yeah, what's the old adage? When you shoot till you're hot, and when you're hot, keep shooting.
Yep.
Crenshaw, wait-and-see time for us is kind of over. They're 6-2 right now, and they just beat a good Fremont team. Maybe Crenshaw isn't just rebuilding. Now, they lost Diggy Winbush. He's over at Taft, and they lost 5 seniors. But they just beat Fremont, as you mentioned, by 15. They beat King by 12. Shedrick Lockridge had 22 points in that win over King. Corey Ray had 10. But here's the test. George Washington Prep this Friday. That's a huge game. It's going to be a gut check for both teams. Going to kind of give us a litmus test to see where does Crenshaw really rank. We've got them at 7. Are they better than George Washington Prep? Can they go out and beat a team? It's kind of been scuffling a little bit late. Maybe, this is kind of that big test for Crenshaw as they sit at 6-2, but they're 7 right now, and I think they're going to stick around.
Yeah, and Washington Prep will be angry after losing to Taft. They took out some of that anger in a league game, and they won like 120
it was ugly,
to 20, but they haven't been tested since that Taft game, and it's at home again. They're going to want to defend their home court. We'll get to them in a little bit, but that's a huge game Friday. Crenshaw travels on the road to Washington Prep. At number 6, Birmingham. They fall outside the top 5, really because El Camino Real's played so well. But Birmingham, they haven't played since we last spoke. And we mentioned last week how they're not going to play till January. That's actually wrong. They are going to be in the Tarkanian tournament in Las Vegas next week, and then in the Classic at Damien the following week. And who do they get in the Classic at Damien?
Bunch of teams.
Rancho Christian. They're in the Platinum Division going against...
Good goodness.
Yeah, the Mobley brothers. So watch out, Birmingham. That's going to be a tough game, but you love to see city teams challenging themselves. And I think when the seeds come for that open division, Birmingham will be right there.
Yeah, Sierra Canyon and Rancho Christian, two of the best teams in California.
Yeah.
Really, really good competition.
Best teams in the country.
Yeah, seriously. So Birmingham, as you mentioned, really testing themselves. They're 4-4, and in a different year, Birmingham might be 3 or 4. But because of how deep we see our top 10, we talk about Taft playing really, really well. We've got El Camino Real. Both of these teams are in Birmingham's league. It's probably the best league. Not probably. It is the best league, the best basketball league right now. The Western League is very close with Westchester and Fairfax, but the depth of talent.
Yeah, and then there's a drop-off after those two.
Exactly. So the depth of talent in that West Valley League kind of gives them the edge. In Birmingham, I think they're really going to kind of test their mettle. A couple of tournaments here in the holidays. We talked about it at the top. A lot of teams getting a shot to kind of tune up before league play starts in the new year. Birmingham, a couple of really good guys. We got to shout out the Cofield guys, Elisha and Corey Cofield, and then Tyrese Wyndham. A couple of impact guys. Expect them to ball out.
And finally, Anthony Spann, a senior, he visited Cal Lutheran to potentially play basketball for them. That was a few days ago. So Birmingham, not only are they playing really well, they're getting guys out. Look at Devonair Detreve over to Arizona and his brother was at Utah before that. So good for Birmingham. It's a good place to be. At 5, El Camino Real, 6-2. And Alex, I saw him a couple weeks ago, but you've seen them more recently in that Beverly Hills tournament. They had a 2-overtime loss to eventual champion Harvard Westlake.
Yeah.
But I feel like every time that we've seen them, we just have a more glowing review every time. They're so good with Ben Todd and just a lot of these guys who are new. We didn't really expect to see El Camino Real be so good, but they've reloaded, they've retooled, and they look nasty.
Yeah, they've got a good or a great player at every level. You got JaVale Collins running the show at point guard. You got Ty Rutledge on the wing. Then, as you mentioned, you got the big man Ben Todd down in the middle. So this is a really talented team that's going to give a lot of team fits because there's not really one way you can stop them. I talked about Grant and Granada Hills. Game plan there for Granada Hills, stop the big guy. Some of these smaller teams, it's guard heavy, just press up on them, make them drive. That's going to challenge them. But with a team like El Camino Real, when you have talent like and the size that they've got, JaVale Collins listed at 6'4", you got Ty Rutledge somewhere like 6'5", and then Ben Todd about 6'10". Double overtime loss.
Did you think he was really 6'10"?
No, he was huge.
Yeah,
when I saw him, he is a lanky dude. That's some long arms, some big hands. Yeah. He's a rebounding machine. And the post moves, the finesse that the kid's got, he's got touch. Inside of 10 feet. Doesn't have to be at the rim. Yeah. He's not just a bonehead. I mean, this kid can really, really shoot. He's going to shoot the basketball, so El Camino Real. I mean, they didn't have Johnny Juzang that game against Harvard Westlake, so Juzang's one of the best players in the southern section. Take that bit with a grain of salt, the 2-overtime loss. They're still a very, very good basketball team, and they win over Crossroads, 63-45. It wasn't really close. Ben Todd had a double-double, 17 and 11. JaVale Collins had 24. And they get the Christmas Classic, the one up in St. Louis Obispo. I might be able to get up to that one, so a lot of good basketball coming for Elko.
At number 4, the top 4 looks the exact same as it did in our previous top 10s. We have Washington Prep at 4, and they lost to Taft in a great game, 60-59. I was there, and man, that was just Taft made one more play. And Diggy Winbush down the stretch was really clutch for him. Washington Prep, I'm sure that game will leave a bad taste in their mouth, and they'll take out their anger in the Imperial League, and they already have a little bit. That was a game, though, for seeding that was really important to them. And now in the Open Division, if things turn out the way we think they might, say Taft drops a couple games in that West Valley League, which they probably will because it's so good, they do have that tiebreaker against George Washington Prep, who's in the inferior league. So even though that was a game in December, really before the season gets going, that's going to have big playoff implications down the line. I was really impressed with Noel Scott in that game. I thought he was great. And then a few other guys, I was just looking for a bit more because they had a chance to kind of step on the throat of Taft a little bit. They let him back into the game, and the Toreadors end up winning the game. Washington Prep, though, still really good, and I expect a lot from them this year.
Yeah, you talk about that close loss against Taft. They avenged it. You mentioned it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
A 116-50 brutalizing of Harvard teachers. So there you go. I mean, a team's angry. They get Crenshaw this Friday.
Yeah,
that's going to be huge test. I expect George Washington Prep, before picking this game, I think they're going to win by 3 or 4 just because I think the depth of talent, some of those big guys that they've got, I think are going to come to the forefront. But the city section, they pay attention to these games here in December. Even though, as you mentioned, it's only early in the season, guys are watching. They're paying attention because come February, when you have to make these decisions, what team slotted where, these games really matter. So Prep, get back on track, beat Crenshaw, all of a sudden you're kind of back where you should be.
At 3, we talked a lot about him with that Washington Prep game. It's Taft. Diggy Winbush was great. He had a couple turnovers early. He didn't really look comfortable early in that Washington Prep game, and I thought that might have been a cause for concern. But then in the second half, it was classic Crenshaw-esque clutch Diggy Winbush, and he had made some jumpers at the end of that game, hit some clutch free throws, took a good charge, really blew me away. And how about Khalil Haywood? I thought he was the best player for Taft in this one. He had 20 points, had a few big-time offensive rebounds, great defensive player as well. He's only a junior. Taft has a lot of really good athletes, and he might be the best one on that team. Taft at 3, we predicted it. Let's pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah, right.
We don't get too many things right, so when we do get something like that right, we're
gonna gloat forever.
We're gonna brag about it. So Taft 3.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good team. We expect in that West Valley League, if they are really the best team, they're probably going to win it, which would automatically slot them.
How about an Elko Taft game, though?
Oh, boy, I can't wait.
I don't know who to pick in that one. I think both
either.
have been really, really great.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. Taft, right now, they're 5-0. They get Brentwood this Friday. Yeah. Brentwood's a really good team. They're 11-1 right now, playing some really, really good basketball. So they get Brentwood, then they're in the Damien Holiday Classic, and then league play starts in the new year. So they're not really taking any time off. We talk about some of these teams kind of coasting into the new year. Not Taft. They're going to be challenged right away. Really excited to see what these guys have, because as we come down the stretch towards the end of the year, let's say Fairfax or Westchester slip up. It's not out of the question. Both of these teams are human. They can lose. Maybe Taft jumps into that too. Maybe even the 1 spot if they play some really good basketball. So lots of things to watch.
Stefan Allah is a good player who transferred from Golden Valley, I believe. I'm not sure if he's injured or if he is dealing with a sit-out period right now, but he didn't play in that Washington Prep game, so Taft might even get a little bit better. At 2, Fairfax, 2-0 since winning the Maranatha tournament like we talked about last week. 10-0 overall, and those 2 wins came in the league. It's going to be easy pickings for him if it's not Westchester. And this is all without Keith Dinwiddie, who will be eligible, I don't think this week, but next week. It's a good time to be a Fairfax fan. Max Preps has him, I think, as number 4 in California, number 11 in the country. Those rankings, wow. You always got to take them with a grain of salt. But Fairfax, they're off to a really good start, and you wouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah, they're 10-0, as you mentioned. A couple of Western League snacks. They beat Palisades 77-31. They beat Venice 84-24. Not going to be tested. They're going to get University. They're going to get Hamilton. Some of these other teams in the league probably aren't going to give them their best punch. But the one to watch, obviously, of course, every year the rivalry against Westchester. That's kind of going to decide who ends up winning this Western League. We're going to talk about Westchester in a minute. Both of these teams undefeated. Both of these teams really, really playing well. It's a great time to just be a city section fan in general.
Certainly. Westchester number 1, Alex, and they're 6-0, like you said. They won their own tournament, and now they're off to Hawaii, where they will play in the Iolani Classic. And we hope, people in Los Angeles, that they will eventually draw Sierra Canyon in that tournament, because that will pair 2 of the top teams in the region against each other early on. I don't know how the matchups are all going to work out, but Westchester, they'd probably lose to Sierra Canyon, but at least that game would be competitive, and that would be a fun one just to see the best team in the city against the best team in the southern section in December. Sign me up. I would love to watch it.
You want to go to Hawaii?
Yeah, not exactly sure how we could see it, but I'm sure we'll hear all about it on Twitter if they do end up playing.
Yeah, in Westchester, you talked about 6-0. They get the tournament in Hawaii. But before they get there, had a couple of Western League games. They played Uni 66-20. Just some classic Westchester scores. Venice 69-17 against Venice. So this is a team.
It's tough to score against these guys.
Yeah, stifling defense. That's the name of the game for them. They really get up against the ball handlers, force a ton of turnovers, get a lot of fast break points that way. It's going to be a really, really good team, a fun team to watch. Not exactly the most entertaining brand of basketball. They're not really throwing oops. They're just really fundamentally sound. They force a lot of turnovers, make the other team make a lot of mistakes. Excited to see if they can push through. If they end up playing that Sierra Canyon game, I mean, Sierra Canyon's loaded. They got some of the best players, Cassius Stanley, some of the other guys at Sierra, really, really good players in the country. How do you defend those guys? Yeah. Can you make them make mistakes? We'll see.
At least Westchester can kind of match up with them, and they're really a good team. So I saw Sierra Canyon dominate Camarillo, and Camarillo had Jaime Jaquez, who's going to UCLA, who's really good, but no one else on that level on that Camarillo team. At least Westchester can throw a couple guys at Sierra Canyon, and we'll see what happens there. But a big ass going up against that team, that's for sure. So the big game's Friday. Taft has a big one, and then Washington Prep hosts Crenshaw. Gardena plays Hollywood. Those are the 3 games I'll be paying attention to Friday. Let's move on to the game ball segment, Alex, where he highlights some of the top players from the past week in the city section. I have 2, you have 2. Get it started.
All right, JaVale Collins, El Camino Real. I watched him play against Crossroads. He had 24 points in the win, just kind of doing it all, as I mentioned. A good defensive player. That Elko team, they got a lot of weapons, and when JaVale Collins is on, it just frees up space for some of the other guys. Later in the game, they were able to get Ben Todd involved, kind of in some foul trouble early on, but once that game started waning down, they got him the basketball. JaVale Collins, 24 points, game ball for me.
Yeah, he's a really good shooter. I saw at the Maranatha tournament firsthand. I agree with that selection. He's great. I have, from Taft, Khalil Haywood, talked about him earlier, 20 points, just a great energy guy for him and can score, can do it all. He can get to the hoop, he can shoot, he had a bunch of big offensive rebounds. He's so important for that Taft team if they have open division title aspirations. He's going to be a big reason why they make a run. We hear a lot about Diggy Winbush, Demetrius Caleb, Brendan Wilson, but Khalil Haywood might be the player with the most potential on that team.
Now, my second game ball, Jesse Benu from Granada Hills. He had 20 points, 4 steals, and almost had a dunk.
Almost had a dunk?
Almost had a dunk. He can almost dunk. He's wearing the Gucci headband. Almost got all the way up there. Not quite. Had to lay it in, but the kid finished with 20 points, as I mentioned. Had the 4 steals. Fantastic, prototypical Granada guard. Really good defensively. Can shoot the 3 ball. Isn't afraid to drive, and is really good from the lane. Game ball for you, Jesse. My man. Good job.
I hope we see a Jesse Benu dunk before the end of the year. Finally, I have Justin Cornelius from Crenshaw for my final game ball. Talked about his sweet 3-point stroke earlier. Really, not single-handedly, but almost single-handedly brought Crenshaw back from the dead against Fremont with some threes from way far away. And he's a big guy, too. He's 6'7", so Coach Waters can kind of put him...
Wings that can shoot, man.
He can put him on the block, and he has a great shot. So he's someone, if you go to a Crenshaw game, watch out for Justin Cornelius. He's great. And those are the game balls this week. The smaller schools, please, put some stuff on MaxPress. We'd love to shout you out as well. But a lot of these schools don't have even rosters up. So anything you can do on Twitter, tag us, or stuff on MaxPreps, that would help us because we've given a few shout-outs this year, but it's been a lot to these bigger teams. So that's my 2 cents right there.
Yeah, get us some love.
I know you've tweeted some stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just helps us. If you have a guy that went off for 25 and 10,
yeah, we'd love to know about it.
Drop us a line. Even if you're from a small school in Division 4, it doesn't matter. We'd love to give him some love. It's just hard for us to get to everybody. If we can't find stats on MaxPreps, we can't find rosters. There's not a whole lot of information. Just shout us out a little bit, and we'll return the favor.
That's the Week 3 LA City Section basketball video. I'm Connor Morissette. He's Alex Scarr. We'll see you next time.